California, and tonight Budweiser presents the U.S. Hot Rod Truck Pull Championship Series, featuring the Battle of the Monster Trucks. Hello again, everybody. I'm Ken Brew. My partner is Mike Galloway, and tonight, Mike, a great lineup of modified trucks. This place ought to be hopping.
Well, we got some great trucks, a lot of California trucks here, some trucks that have came clear across the country from Connecticut and up in that area. So a real exciting night for competition. A lot of them and a lot of good, hard-hitting trucks that we haven't seen, Ken.
Specifically different sized engines, different make engines, and as you say, a nice blend of California and Midwest.
Good variety of motors. We got some big 600-plus cubic inch Rodex on hand, even some larger cast iron motors. The track is excellent. They're going to put the tall gear in. They're going to make the tires spin fast. To really put on a good show, they're going to have to really hook the motors hard out of the hole.
Not only that, inside, shorter track, even the bigger sized engines are more competitive with the smaller ones.
It'll be real close. I wouldn't worry about going up against the 600-inch motors tonight with a small 487 or something. I think the track will even it out on the end.
The place is Oakland, California, and Budweiser presents the U.S. Hot Rod Truck Pull Championship Series, featuring the Battle of the Monster Trucks. This telecast is brought to you by Budweiser, the king of beers, and proud sponsor of the 1988 U.S. Olympic team. For all you do, this Bud's for you. Welcome back to the Oakland Coliseum Arena. Mike Galloway and I have made our way from the floor up to our little perch here, and we're going to get a chance to see right out of the chute a truck called Misconception. A 41-year-old grandmother behind the wheel, Peggy Jones of Arcata, California, 69 Ford. Her husband, Harry's the mechanic. I was talking to Peggy beforehand, Mike, and she says it brings them closer together. Their hobby is their life.
I imagine it does. A lot of husband and wives travel together and seems to help a lot. Now notice this truck, when we'll get a shot of it in a little bit, looks as it has no rear fenders. The trucks all have to have some kind of covering over the rear tires, and they have got close to that with a couple of little chrome fenders that just hang out over the rear tires. It's perfectly legal. It says that you have to have a bed, not a flat bed on these trucks, so they have the sides coming up on it. That's all cold rolled steel, and then the little small fenders on the side of it makes for a good-looking truck, and this truck hooks very well. Peggy is a good, strong competitor. She reads the track well. She drives extremely well. I think she'll be tough to beat tonight.
Her husband, as I said, the mechanic, he's also a logger. They live in Northern California, and this is the Misconception. Well, 100 feet and then trouble.
The rear drive shaft came out of the truck. She snapped off the U-joint going into the rear end on the truck, twisted the rear U-joint completely out of it, but you see the silver, those are protective rings that keep it all enclosed so it will not go anywhere. Hooked very well. The truck really sounded good. It's making good motion and really good ground speed. She's hooked up extremely well, but watch the back of the truck. Watch right there in that area, the back of the truck lets go, pops up in the air, unloads the truck. The rear drive shaft came out of it.
And a broken yoke sends Peggy Jones to the tow truck man. Peggy Jones, the victim of a cruel yoke.
Well, Ken Brew, all sorts of personalities on hand tonight.
My goodness. That's the man there. I think it's the man. It's the dog, that's for sure.
Forget the man, that's the dog.
Right, that's Spuds. Taking in all the action here in Oakland tonight. I like his shirt, too. I like this truck. This is a truck that was once rhapsodized by Paul Simon. This is the one-trick pony. Dan Ribeiro behind the wheel from Tulare, California. He tells me it's just north of Bakersfield. It's an 80 Jimmy, 620 Rodak. Loves the Rodak, he said, because if you blow the engine, heck, all you got to do is just weld it.
That's the initial expense of the motors, of the aluminum motors, are quite high in compared to the cast iron. But the big thing about them is that, as you mentioned, if you knock a piece out of the side of them, they can be welded back together. They're dry block. You don't have to worry about getting into the water jackets or getting into the cylinders. They're sleeve dry block motors. They're almost indestructible. You break them, you fix them, they go again. And this good-looking GMC, and these boys are very proud of a GMC truck. It's a father, son, and uncle combination. They're in the dairy business, and they run a real fine truck. He's one of the toughest in California.
Dan Ribeiro. Good-looking truck and a good-looking pull for Dan Ribeiro and the one-trick pony.
Ken Brew, that was an absolute excellent pull. The weight box running up the ramp very quickly. hopping real close to the 150-foot mark as Dave Ribeiro raises the body up and lets you take a look underneath this truck. And, you know, this is not only a show part of the truck, but it's also very convenient when you work on the vehicle to get up and get next to it. You change the valve, set the valves on it, or change the plugs or something like that. Makes it a lot easier to get into the truck when you have a tilt body. Let's watch him as he comes out. He leads with the truck real hard. Doesn't roll with it, mash the throttle. He does it right out of the hole. The truck hooks well. You can see all the tires are dialed in. He's throwing up some good kind of dirt and a real fine hook for one-trick pony. That's going to be one of the tough ones to meet tonight. I really think that'll be one of the top hooks of the evening. One-trick pony, Dave Ribeiro from Tulane, California, comes in with a measurement of 160 feet, 10.5 inches.
Good run for Dave Ribeiro. And now here is a truck called Hard 8. This is Gene Casatorto from Morgan Hills, California. He's, as you can see, with a 73 Ford, 580 under the hood. His sponsor, the guy that built the engine, the Reddick brothers, figures he gave them about $30,000 worth of business. We'll see how it works now. Hard 8. And that's about 150 feet the hard way, too.
It was a good hook, Ken Brew. A real good hook. He's not going to be there at the lead, but it was a good hook all the way around. The truck really dug into the track. It had good traction all the way down. I think he did a great job of running that side of the track. A good early number really is going to help. That'll be a fine mark.
And this is Yellow Fever. Jim Massetti behind the wheel from Madera, California. It's a 41 Dodge Military, a classic, a complete classic.
Well, in 1941, Dodge was only building vehicles, utility vehicles for the military because of the war that was coming up. And this truck was probably considered a ton and a quarter. Now still running military transfer case and rear ends, but a very good hard hooking truck.
And restored by Jim Massetti. Painted yellow and called the Yellow Fever. He's got 481 under the hood, and he's got the green flag to boot.
It's a good running truck. It really hooks hard.
A little bit of a hesitation at 50 feet. What happened?
That was intentional. I think he backed out of the throttle a little bit, trying to slow the tires down enough to hook to the track and then get back on it. And I believe it really did him some good because he wasn't getting too good a ground speed before the little hesitation in it. We'll take a look at it as he goes down the track. Now watch him. He nails the motor real hard off the starting line. He gets the tension tight in the chain. Here he comes. He's really hooking hard, but right in this area, you're going to see him lit up for just a minute. When he gets back in it, he hooks real well. The tires come in contact with the track. They slow down enough. He really gets a good hook, takes him down around the 150-foot mark.
We'll be right back from the Oakland Coliseum in Oakland, California in just a moment. Inside the spacious Oakland Coliseum Arena in Oakland, California, Ken Brew along with Mike Galloway and our next competitor, the Videodrome. This is a truck driven by Jim Mosby. Got a chance to chat with Jimmy before the race, and he tells me he's got a brand new motor in there. As you can see, it's a 557, and over above it is an 85 Chevy.
Affectionately known around the full circuit as Mo, and this young gentleman really gets into a new truck, new paint on it, new motor in it, did well with his other truck. This is his pride and joy, and it shows. It does a great job. This truck will hook.
From Dos Patos, California, Jim Mosby.
He's 160 foot plus.
That was a good pull, but there was some backfiring about the last 50 feet or so.
At the 150-foot mark, the motor started to lay down on him, and really laid down on him bad. It started missing real bad. And that's really a shame because the truck was hooked so well, he could have very well taken the lead. Let's watch him. He has a beautiful hook off the starting line. Everything's going good. Jim does something a little different as he rolls the sled probably 20 feet before he really jumps in the middle of the motor and makes it come to life. It's barking for him and really doing a good job. But right in this area, the motor starts right there. The motor just flat lays down and starts to miss and come back, and plugs probably fouling out on it. See the little fire coming out of it. Not a good sign on that particular incident. Burning off a little excess fuel. But a good pull. I believe it's going to move him to the number 2 spot.
There's Mo. Now, I would think some of the drivers may be standing there at the beginning looking at this, seeing how the track is coming up, seeing how these other trucks perform on it. So maybe some of the later competitors can go to school on people like Jim Mosby.
the longer you pull, the better you become in reading a track, and the better you can read a track, the further you're going to go down that track.
Well, almost TV picture perfect for the Videodrome. Jim Mosby from Dos Palos with a pull tonight of 154 feet and 8 inches. And he will now give way to Bob Hart in that truck, the ground pounder out of Hudson, New Hampshire, an 86 Chevy Sidestep. What does that mean? Or step side? What is a step side?
Step side is the narrower bed. Fleet side is an 8-foot bed width. The step side, smaller. The fenders hang out from it, are very exposed. There's a good shot of the fenders and the step side. It's all trucks early up in Chevrolets up until 1955 were step sides, and in 55 they came with a cameo, and now that it's kind of an exceptional deal when you have a step side. This young gentleman has traveled 3,550 miles to be here tonight.
Wow.
Drew, look at the rear tires. The rear tires on the truck.
Well, if it was front-wheel drive, he'd be in great shape, but you need four-wheel drive to compete. And Bob Hart just got skunked by his rear tires.
3,550 miles and
about 52 feet.
Sad situation. The rear tires are not spinning at the same speed as the front tires. Consequently, something in the drive line, whether it be in the transfer case or the drive shaft U-joint, but something going to the rear end has broken, and he could not get traction on all 4 tires. It's a short distance for him.
Look at that. Look at that. Some smoke and something dripping down tool. Look, now he's real concerned.
He's carrying in his water, and this is not a dry block, but the water inside for the coolant on it is in the pickup bed. Well, he's got the motor a little too hot, and it's steam coming out of the container in the back of the pickup bed. It's causing all the smoke-looking stuff to rise out of the pickup bed.
So the ground pounder gets pounded by the ground itself, and now we'll have to give way to the tow truck. You're looking at the Oakland Coliseum Arena here in Oakland, California. Ken Brew with Mike Galloway, and next up is the Abracadabra from Willows, California. This is Dennis Tucker. He's got a 75 Chevy, 475 under the hood, and this is a bigger motor for him. We'll see how it does. They refer to that as OB. He played chicken with the line and lost.
Went out of bounds, and Ken Brew, he had a very good hook going when he went out of bounds. That's when the flagman put the red flag on him. But anytime you go out of bounds, they will take the measurement and subtract 30 feet off of it. That's the way the United States Hot Rod Association has determined to do an out-of-bounds measurement.
Dennis Tucker, Willows, California. Obviously, this was the strategy, Mike, is to play it close to the left side of the track.
Trying to stay out of the ground that anyone else has been on, and Dennis is doing a pretty good job. But you got to remember, this thing doesn't always go where it wanted to, and you saw it go to the left. Right there at the end, it went to the left, and Dennis reached over and tried to bring it around, but it had a mind of its own tonight, and Abracadabra took him out of bounds, and it'll be real tough for that good-looking truck tonight. 4.5 inches been cut out of the roof. A chop-top pulling truck, beautiful custom work on it.
You know, what we have are great competition vehicles, but they're also fun to look at. Most of them could win first prize just for show. Let's take a look at some of them. And it's a good time to tell you that tonight's action is brought to you by Four Wheeler Magazine, the nation's leading 4x4 publication. Pick up your copy of Four Wheeler today at your local newsstand.
Watch out.
We're back at the Oakland Coliseum, and this is modified truck action. Stepping onto the track is maybe a truck named after my buddy Mike Galloway. This is the Oklahoman Ken Goin behind the wheel from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. They named this one after you, didn't they?
Pretty close. This gentleman is the 1982 and 1986 national champion, and when he's not on the full circuit, he runs a business called Driller's Engine Supply in Oklahoma City. Now here Kenneth sets with 8 cylinders with 606 cubic inches, and they build in their shop in Oklahoma, Driller's Engine Supply, they build engines where one cylinder would have as much as 600 cubic inches.
Wow.
And there can be V12s and V14s. They're just gigantic motors. There's a shot of the Driller's sign. All of the Driller's vehicles, all of his company vehicles, are black in color. This is a husband and wife team.
Mike mentioned 606 under the hood. It's a Rodak. Is that correct?
On a Rodak block. The heads on it are an aluminum Pontiac designed head. There's a good shot. You can see the heads there off on the right in their Pontiac, off of a big Pontiac motor. Some very exotic racing. Right down in front, it's the starter hanging out in the front.
Go ahead, Mike.
Here comes Kenneth, and this man, if anyone can do it, he can.
Oh, that was a good pull front to back. We'll see if it's enough for the lead, but a fine pull for the Oklahoman.
He knocked on the door of Dave Ribeiro's pull with one trick pony. Really got close. A good hook for Kenneth. Now, you notice Kenneth also ran the line, but he ran the opposite side. He was on the right-hand side of the track.
Just a good hook. This thing was dialed in right from the start.
Right on the right-hand side. Kenneth doesn't waste any time with his Lewis Boyd-built motor. Opens the butterflies up. Look at the ground speed on this truck. Really building a lot of ground speed, making a very good hook. A tremendous effort on Ken Yun's part. A very fine hook.
Kind of bouncy, too, so the track must be a little bit bouncy down there tonight. Not a very giving track.
The track, it's basically hard with a crust on top of it, and they're going to break it loose.
And like the wind that comes sweeping down the plain, Ken Goin from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, in the Oklahoman, goes 151.7 and moves into third place. Fine pull for the Oklahoman. And now rolling onto the track is the prosecutor, David Ravella, under the roof of the Oakland Arena. 59 Chevy, 427 under the hood. He's from Hollister, California. Took him 3 years to build this thing, and he's pretty proud of it.
You know, one thing I've got to say about these people, they do more than come for the competition. They come to have a good time, and I enjoy being around them. Dave and Pappy, the prosecutor and the judge, 2 fine people.
Not quite to 150, an interesting strategy there. He rolled it for about the first 35, 40 feet before really letting it wow.
Exactly right, Ken. We're seeing also that the track's coming apart. The traction's not quite as good as it was earlier. And we're going to see some people make some deep hooks, but they're going to do all of it with horsepower. Let's watch him. The tires just kind of easing into it a little bit at a time. And right in this area is when he really calls for the horsepower. It's there. It hooks good. But look at the six-pack coming up the top of the sled already. Putting the weight on him. The prosecutor just can't handle all the weight tonight. Brings it to a halt.
So for the prosecutor, no verdict tonight. Only a pull of 141 feet, 11 and a half inches. Well, here is Jess Alarcon and Rough Rider. He's from Dos Palos, California. 61 Chevy, 61 Chevy, and a 542 Joe Bogosian engine.
Watch
a Rough Rider.
This is a tough truck. He can do it. Got good hook.
Oh, that might be the pull of the night. It might be the pull of the night.
Ken Brew, that was done with horsepower and ground speed. He had the truck geared perfect. And look at him, and he's got more ground speed. He's pulling the sled faster than anyone else. And that's so important to get that momentum going for you right off the starting line. He did that, but he carried the momentum all the way down the track, well past the 150-foot mark.
All right, now let me ask you this. We talked about drivers going to school, drivers that had the later draws going to school on the drivers that had gone early in the poll. Could they be outside now? Some of these guys that have yet to pull, maybe adjusting the gears and things like that.
Well, yes, you see a hook like that. You see what kind of ground speed, how the track held up underneath him. It definitely wants to make you change the transmission. You may want to change the tire pressure a little bit. There's a number of things that you could do to compensate for the track conditions.
The Rough Rider, there he is, Jess Alarcon, Dos Palos, California. 158 feet, 11 inches. Fine pull tonight for that man. Backing up, ready to go, is the Rat Patrol. Chet Longacre behind the wheel. An interesting story. Maybe a man you might even want to salute when you see him. Mike Galloway has the inside story on the Rat Patrol and Chet Longacre.
I'm with Chet Longacre, and Chet drives the Rat Patrol truck. And Chet, a lot of trucks to choose from. When you built this one, why particularly the military?
Well, when I built this truck 3 years ago, I was in the military, in the Navy, and I've been associated with the military for 27 years, so this was a natural for me at that time. It's patriotic, and it's a different look. It's a lot more to it than just chrome and fancy paint. It's a unique look.
Chet, when you were in the military, in the Navy, what was your occupation?
I'm a Navy pilot, or was at that time, and I even started in submarines as an enlisted man many, many years ago.
There's got to be a lot of difference between flying a jet several hundred miles an hour and going 20 or 30 miles an hour down a pull track. Why the pull sport?
I got involved in pulling a long time ago from a stock tractor standpoint in the farming community, and it's something that we got into as a family. It's a big family affair for us, and my sons have been very active and very supportive. That's why we're in it.
You also have another supporter that travels with you, helps wrench with you, and does everything.
Yes, my wife Darlene. She's a real road warrior. She's hung in there and supported us through thick and thin, from washing the vehicle to shining the tires, whatever. She's really good.
Now, around the pull circuit, it takes you longer to get ready to pull and to get ready to go home than anyone. Is that from the jet pilot?
Oh, yes, it is. I'm afraid. I get a lot of ribbing about that, but the real fact is when you check out an airplane, you got to make sure that thing's going to stay in the air. And that's where I learned attention to detail and making sure things are right. And I carry that over into pulling, and that's why I have such great luck with engines, for instance. They last a long time.
Why the carburetors instead of injectors?
I felt the carburetors offered us a good deal more control in the critical part of the track, and that's right off the start line. Rather than have the on-off switch effect of injectors, I can control the carburetors with the hand throttle much more precisely. And that's why I use them.
There's Chet. Nice shot of him inside the cab of the Rat Patrol. He's had a lot of problems lately with braking axles. He says it's this new motor, and it just caused him a whole lot of grief with that front end.
There's the carburetors on it, and this is a different setup than probably 90% of the pullers are running here tonight. The carburetors setting up on top of the motor, Chet likes them. They give him, feels like it gives them a little more control out of the hole. Many times we've talked before, the first 25, 30 feet is the most important part of any pull. Chet could really set a mark tonight. Good motor. He can keep it together.
Yeah, that could be the pull of the night. Longacre has gone to school on what went before him and maybe has set the standard.
160 feet, 10.5 inches, the leading mark. He is just almost in the identical mark of the leading puller. It's going to be in just a moment. We'll get a measurement, but a fine hook.
The Rat Patrol says he's going to replace that front end pretty soon, but the one he's got on now isn't doing too bad.
Watch Chet. Chet goes a lot further down the track before he ever calls on the motor to come to life. He goes probably 50 feet, and when he does, he's got a good rolling start on it and mashes the throttle hard. The truck is hooked excellent, front end coming up just a little bit in the air, but you'll notice the truck really digging in and making the front end working. And see how the tires are working back and forth on the front end. That's what's putting the strain and the load on that axle.
158 feet and 9 inches. Chuck Longacre behind the wheel of Rat Patrol. And that should move him into third place.
To those who...
Well, next out of the chute tonight is Dan Coelho behind the wheel of the Red Rabbit. 78 Dodge, 540 KB. And as we've been mentioning on various shows, Coelho in Portuguese means Rabbit.
Well, this Rabbit really runs good.
That Rabbit may have outrun the Fox and the Hound.
And the Pony, because I believe he has gone to the lead with that truck.
He is just a superb competitor, isn't he? I mean, you talk about a fellow that's got the equipment and the know-how behind the wheel, and obviously someone that studies what goes on before him.
Well, Dan Coelho is involved in this sport in all aspects of it. Not only does he have 2 pulling trucks, he has a pair of weight transfer machines or sleds. He also promotes a number of pulls here in California. And he's going to go back to back. His other truck will be running next.
Here he comes again, Mike, and kind of like what Chet Longacre did, he slides a little bit, but seems to hit the pedal a little bit sooner.
He comes into it a little harder, and the truck is hooked very good right off the starting line. Dan's really working it down the track. The big Keith Black motor is doing everything he could ask of it. He goes to the lead with a fine pull on the Red Rabbit.
The Red Rabbit, 159 feet, 7 3/4 inches. 159, 7 3/4. Dan Coelho out of Turlock, California, has inched his way now into second place.
Well, from our vantage point, we're looking across track at an angle, and there's a shot of his red truck and his yellow truck. It looked like he could have taken the lead, and these guys are just really nipping it at Dave Ribeiro. Ribeiro's got to be, got to be worried about it out in the pit area. There's nothing he can do now. He made his best hook. It's held up for quite a while. Let's see if it'll last the rest of the evening.
Dave Ribeiro, one-trick pony. He has the lead. Coelho has come close in Red Rabbit, and now will try to eclipse what Ribeiro did in Wild Hare.
And I think this is good that he's going to run these trucks back to back, even though he has not had any time to do any changing on this Wild Hare truck. He can change his driving strategy a little bit. It gives him just enough momentum to know what these two trucks do, what this one will do a little bit better than the red truck. Lets him adjust his driving style. I think it could really help and may put him in the lead.
A little bit more horsepower with this truck. The Red Rabbit was a 540 kV. This is a 557. Is there that much of a difference? It doesn't sound like a whole bunch.
There's not a whole lot of difference to it, but this is his original modified truck. His red truck was a super stock for a long time and then converted over to a modified. He bought this truck to build a modified truck out of.
There you see him hooking on, and as we've mentioned, 2 hooks, Mike, one for real and one just for safety.
One safety, 6 inches lower, and Dan Coelho runs Danco Custom Trailers in Turlock, California. They build truck semi-trailers, and they also build truck bodies, and he's got a couple of fine trucks. Let's see if he can do it. Really going to have to do something hard.
Boy, I'll tell you what, it's called the Wild Hare. That's splitting hairs. He may have taken the lead, but again, from our vantage point, looking at it on the angle, we've got to wait for these guys to measure it.
It is so close, and the trucks almost ran identical. I think he drove them alike, and I think they hooked just the same tonight.
Coelho waving the Rabbit out of the cab, obviously pleased with his performance tonight.
He may mash the throttle, and he does get on the throttle a little bit earlier on this truck than he did the red truck, and I think he did that because he may have a little more horsepower with this truck. When he calls for it, he knows it's there. He's got very good ground speed. The little white flag in the lower part of your screen is marking the lead mark. That's just kind of a visual aid to keep you an idea of where the leading mark is, and he is very close to that.
Wild Hare, Dan Coelho out of Turlock, California, 158 feet, 6.5 inches. Not quite good enough as what Red Rabbit did, but Coelho still in the money in second place with Red Rabbit. Well, there is one of the powers behind the performance tonight. That's Doug Hansen. He is what they call the event coordinator for the United States Hot Rod Association. Mike Galloway had a chance to talk with him before things got underway tonight.
Doug Hansen, technical director for the United States Hot Rod Association. Doug, for each and every pull, you hold a meeting. What do you discuss with the driver?
We discuss the format of the show, exactly how the show is going to run. We talk about safety, making sure that everyone knows where they belong during the show so that they're not in the track or anywhere where they could possibly get hurt. Make sure everyone understands the rules of the show and any participation or problems that could happen in the contest. They know any extenuating circumstances.
Do you and your sled operator discuss what you're going to do, how you're going to run the sled?
Every sled can be set by weight or by gears. as you well know. And it depends on the track. Some tracks are harder and softer. We don't want to put on a bad show where the sled is stopping at 10 feet, but we don't want everyone to go out the door either. So the sled operator has a real important job. I basically trust him most of the time. But we decide what gear and what weight should be put in the sled, hoping that we have the most optimal show for the crowd.
Here's a young man that's got a lot resting on his shoulders tonight. Doug Hansen, Tech Director for the United States Hot Rod Association.
And a nice shot of the Oakland Coliseum Arena here in Oakland, California. Ken Brew and Mike Galloway, and here comes the judge, Ted Duncan from Hollister, California. We saw the prosecutor earlier. This was the forerunner to the prosecutor, a 59 Chevy 508 under and through the hood.
Well, there's probably a lot of pullers that won't recognize the name Ted Duncan because he's known as Pappy, as you can see on the door. And Pappy is a very, very enjoyable person to be around. Got a good hooking truck, a pair of good hooking trucks. As we mentioned earlier, when this group come to the bull, they come to win, but they also come to enjoy themselves.
They must like the law. One truck called the prosecutor, this one called Here Comes the Judge.
They may be familiar with it.
From Hollister, here comes Pappy. Well, if Coelho wrote the book, Pappy read it. Almost identical strategy to what Dan Coelho tried with Red Rabbit and Wild Hare. Coast and then dial it in at about 50 feet.
Pappy had a little problem as he went down the track, and it took footages off of his pull. It hurt him a lot more than you'd imagine as the truck bounced when it went down the track. We'll take a look at it. You notice that about the 100-foot mark, it's going to get into a bounce mode, and that's really taken away from the track, and it takes away from the footages. Let's watch him. He's got a good hook right here, but you see the truck beginning to bounce up and down. On the end, you see the front tires almost coming off the ground. Need the front end glued in a little better. I think Pappy needs to take some weight off the truck, hang it out on the nose, and really get that front end to bite him.
Well, here's the final results in the modified truck pull. Coming in third with 1:58.11 is the Rough Rider, Jess Alarcon from Dos Palos. Then Dan Coelho and the Red Rabbit finishing second. And the winner and still champion here in Oakland, California is the man in the middle between Mike Galloway and myself, Dave Ribeiro. Congratulations, Dave.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about the run tonight. We were commenting that it looked like you were just dialed in front to back and got on the track at a good time before it really got torn up.
Yeah, the track was in excellent condition when we get out because we were the fourth puller. And we kind of took a chance. We might have ran a little bit more gear than we should have, but the motor carried it, and it looks like it ended up being a good pull.
Before you got into it, you laid on the line for a little bit. This is kind of a driving technique for you, isn't it? You do this a lot?
Yeah, I like to watch the oil pressure, make sure everything's right. I have enough heat in the engine, at least in the heads. And I want to make sure that I don't bang the clutch too much and blow the tires out of the ground. I found out that since we went to the larger motor, they're not as forgiving as the smaller engines.
When you made the hook, you were early, as you mentioned. Did you think it would stand up?
No, because it got so close. I think it was down just to about 5 or 6 inches.
It got real close, but you did a great job. It's a championship pull. We're very proud of you, Dave.
Thank you.
Dave, congratulations.
Thank you.
The Truck Pull Championship Series will continue from Oakland in just a second. Back in Oakland, California, Ken Brew along with Mike Galloway, and right now we're going to move into the exhibition class. We've got a couple of exhibition funny cars tonight and two fine-looking vehicles. First off, the Heart Attack. Bob Hart from Hudson, New Hampshire. Tell me about this.
Supercharged Chevrolet motor sitting inside of an all-fiberglass Trans Am body. Beautiful car. Just taken it over and repainted it and rebuilt the car recently. I tell you what, he does a fine job with it. These things are something really exciting to watch, and unbelievable horsepower. They're pounding out about 1,500 horsepower with the supercharged motors. You see the supercharger and the injector butterfly setting up on top, and it is one double tough piece of equipment. Of course, Bob Hart always has nice-looking equipment.
Well, if you watch the modified trucks, you'll notice the key difference with these vehicles is the back wheels stay on the track, but the front wheels don't.
This is true, and they're only pulling on the rear tires, as you mentioned. And tell you one thing, you're going to see some very exciting action in these two exhibitions.
The Heart Attack. Bob Hart from Hudson, New Hampshire. Hooked on and waiting for the green flag.
Listen to the power come down to that supercharged Chevrolet motor. been on the road for several days to get here tonight and make a pass. Let's see if he can put one together. Hauling him up and down the road is just as tough on him as making a pass down the track.
Here he comes. Coronary thrombosis for the heart attack.
Just keeping everything in line. Beautiful job. Drifted off the right-hand side, but an exhibition pass. The out-of-bounds mark doesn't come into effect.
No rules in this game.
Run what you brung.
Bob Hart, right from the start, fired it up and played a little bouncy down the track.
Watch the front end on it. Lift in the air as Bob Hart gets good tire speed. A lot of power. Front end comes up. He's on a ride of a lifetime. Up and down, it is really tough. Of course, has to control it with the rear brakes. Drifts off to the right-hand side. That's where he shuts the throttle down.
Well, take a look at this car. This is a pretty good deal. As a matter of fact, this is Deal Wilson behind the wheel of the Virginia. Just a superb-looking Mustang and the pride of the Ford Motor Company.
No doubt about that. And the reason being, most funny cars that you see either have the aluminum Keith Black motors in them or they got the cast iron supercharged Chevrolet. Not Deal Wilson. I think Deal Wilson is blue clear through. I mean, it's all Ford underneath the hood. It's a supercharged 604 cubic inch Ford motor in this beautiful fiberglass funny car body, and Deal Wilson will show no mercy. He will show the crowd what they came to see.
You know, we talk about the power and the fury, but the paint job on this is incredible.
Deal Wilson is a... Took it to the tunnel.
Oh, man. Saddle up trigger until Dale will be home by sunset. And the next stop was the Bay.
That young man had the power. He had the combination, stuck it right straight up in the air, and when he said go, it went.
Wow.
I tell you what, Deal really did a great job. That vehicle looks beautiful. It performs superbly. Let's watch him as he comes down the track on the replay. Watch Deal call for the motor right out of the hole. Just gets it out a little bit, finds out what it's going to be there, and says, let's take it to the house. Really got the front end stuck right straight up in the air. He's probably got a ground speed of 30 miles an hour, and when he says go for it, he goes all the way out the end. Waving at the crowd on the far end of the track. Just a tremendous job all the way around. Deal Wilson, Winchester, Virginia.
Look at this car. Look at the paint job on this car. It is incredible. Right down to the last minute detail.
Deal Wilson is a body man by profession, so you understand why the beautiful looks on that vehicle.
And let me tell you about another good sponsor of the U.S. Hot Rod Association, Goodyear Wrangler. Hey, you either have Goodyear Wranglers or you need them. Back in Oakland, California at the Oakland Arena, it is time for the main event. It is time for the battle of the monster trucks. The Virginia Giant against Barefoot.
Boy, this is a classic confrontation. This is a blown Ford up against a blown Chevrolet. Both of the drivers very experienced. Both of them wanting to do very well. Each one of the trucks very qualified in what they're going to do here tonight. And I promise you, you're going to see some of the wildest action that you've ever seen in monster truck racing.
Here is the agenda. Wheel stamping, then distance jumping, topped off by an obstacle course race.
Well, Deal Wilson right now has got a problem as the windshield coming in from outside has kind of fogged over a little bit. He's going to have to clear that out a little bit before he can even attack the cars. He can't see them right now.
Are these built with defrosters?
I think they took the defroster out of this truck. Deal, as we mentioned, this gentleman is in the body business. And I tell you what, he does a beautiful job. Watch out. Look at that.
Whoa.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Ken Brew, have you ever seen one stand right up on the rear tires the way that one did?
No, that's a first. The Virginia Giant, Deal Wilson, has made the first pass, and now will load it up for another run.
Well, he set the the pace and made it very difficult. Now he's running a supercharged Hemi Ford. Fred Schaefer runs a supercharged alcohol-burning Chevrolet. Fred Schaefer could have a problem because one of the cars, the last car in the lineup, has slipped out of place. They need to move that car back into place before Fred hits the other cars. It could be very difficult, the landing situation. They need to move that car back into place. It's very dangerous right now.
But he's got the green flag nonetheless. Barefoot, Fred Schaefer. Watch him. Here he comes. Whoa!
My heavens, it is unbelievable.
I have never seen that before in monster truck competition.
It looked like you had launched a rocket, Ken Brew. When he hit the cars, he went right straight up in the air, and then he landed the left tire up on. Let's watch it.
This is unbelievable.
Now watch him when he hits the cars. He just calls for the horsepower on this big supercharged Chevrolet. And when he does that, it's right straight up in the air. Hits him, gives it the power, and look at this.
Oh, man.
But watch that front tire. It misses the cars. It misses the cars. That one car had rolled back with the Virginia Giant hitting it. It made for a very, very tough landing for Barefoot. You know, theoretically, a 13,000, 14,000-pound truck will not fly. But I think we're going to see one of them fly here tonight.
The Virginia Giant, the pride of Ford, against Barefoot, the General.
Oh, fantastic job for Dio Wilson. Now, it set a white flag out on the trackside. The white flag is where the front tires landed on the Giant. The front tires. Now, that's the point they're measuring from. The visual is not an actual inches mark. But you can bet Fred Schaefer can see that white flag, or has seen it. And when he comes around to hit those cars, Fred Schaefer will definitely be watching the white flag as long as he can. Of course, when he hits, it's right straight up in the air, and vision goes away. You see the rafters and hope there's something underneath you to land on.
The white flag is basically 3 cars in on the 5-car lineup. So Barefoot has got to go at least that far to tie and pass it to win.
He can do it.
Whoa, man!
Did he ever do it?
Did he win?
Was there ever any doubt?
He hit the lottery. Barefoot wins the jump. He landed in the middle of the 5th car.
I think we're going to see this on a replay, and when we do, I want you to watch what Fred Schaefer does. Here again, very good driving technique. He nails it real hard. He gives a lot of air, but watch the front end. Very high in the air, just flying over, lands on that last car. Watch the rear end kick up in the air. What he has to do and what he does is mashes the throttle. He gets traction with the front tires. That pulls the front end out, lets the back end drop down. No problems at all.
Actually, his back tires bettered the mark that the front tires of the Virginia Giant had.
Was unbelievable. Now,
Barefoot wins the jump, no problem.
Now the time portion of the race. This is how quick can you go down, make the U-turn, get over the cars, and cross the finish line.
This the obstacle part of the race. We've done wheel stands and distance, and now the obstacle race. There you see Dio Wilson in the Virginia Giant. You can see Barefoot better him in the jump. And now we'll try to make up some room here, take up some distance in the obstacle race. Here we go.
Both the trucks well built, both of them with planetary gears. Dio sets it in the slide. He's underway with a good time. A little crossways. He's crossways when he hits.
He lost time on the turn.
He needed to be lined up with the cars a lot straighter than he was when he hit them. He was crossways, couldn't get it turned around, the vehicle responding too quickly. It just wouldn't come together for Dio tonight. He's done a great job.
Dio Wilson, Virginia Giant, but he's left the door open for Barefoot.
A 15-11.
15 seconds, 15.1 seconds, basically, is what the time comes down to. Here comes Barefoot.
You can bet that Fred Schaefer's loaded for Bear on this one.
Oh, man, steady Freddie Schaefer behind the wheel of the Barefoot. Look at those tires.
Watch this truck. He will show absolutely no mercy on it. Much like he did in the jump, he will be wide open from the word go. Fred Schaefer, the dangerous situation here is sliding on the concrete and then hitting the dirt. Now, a lot of times when you do that, the tires won't slide. It'll cause them to tip up on two wheels or even tip completely over. So that's something these guys have to have on their mind.
These trucks can tip over, can't they?
Most definitely. We have seen Fred Schaefer upside down on his roof trying to do the same thing.
Fred hoping for better luck now. He's got the green flag. This is Barefoot.
It loaded right off the starting line. It loaded it right off the starting line, and it really hurts the truck. It's hurting the performance. The motor is overloaded with fuel. He's got to clean it out.
I don't know if he beat him. I don't know if he beat 1:15 or if he beat 15.11 seconds.
Brew, the motor wouldn't work for him that time around. It just would not leave on the starting line. It hesitated, but it would not come to life.
And you think he had too much fuel in the engine?
I think that he had probably loaded.
No, he didn't. He did not beat the Virginia Giant.
15:49.
Virginia Giant beat him by 0.3 of a second.
Well, even Ken Brew, even with the close competition, Barefoot takes the overall.
Barefoot takes the overall by virtue of a better performance in the wheel stand and distance, but in the race, in the obstacle course race, the Virginia Giant beat Barefoot by almost 0.4 of a second. The Truck Pull Championship Series will continue from Oakland in just a second. Budweiser presents the U.S. Hot Rod Truck Pull Championship Series, featuring the Battle of the Monster Trucks. This telecast has been brought to you by Budweiser, the king of beers, and proud sponsor of the 1988 U.S. Olympic team. For all you do, this Bud's for you. This is Ken Brew speaking for Mike Galloway, and this has been a presentation of Bud Sports through the facilities of ESPN.